So someone asked me earlier, how did I build my audience? Basically, how do you build an audience where you can generate 7 figures or at least 6 figures off of that audience? There are lots of things that I did, but what really changed it for me was essentially one thing, which I'll talk about in just a second. But essentially, I started out by saying, okay, let me look at the industry that I'm thinking about getting into, which was the public speaking niche, right? And I looked at all the advice that was out there, and I thought all the advice sucked. Like all the information that all these guys were presenting just absolutely sucked. Like even from guys who had 7-figure businesses, the advice they were giving was horrible, because they would say things like have a great presentation, or it's all about referrals and word of mouth. And that didn't really help, because I felt like they were just talking from the standpoint of like, here's some information I should tell people, rather than here's what actually works. So instantly I knew that my advice was 1,000,000 times better, like 100 times better, just because, well, no, 1,000,000's bigger than 100, so 1,000,000 times better. So I knew it was 1,000,000 times better from the very get-go, because I've been doing it all my life. I've been getting hired by Fortune 500 companies all my life. So I said, what these guys are putting out there is just crap. So instantly I had the confidence to do it. Then I started putting out some information, and in the beginning it was focused strictly on me, because I didn't have testimonials, I didn't have people who bought a product or anything. So it was focused strictly on me, my story, my expertise. After I was putting out content, I essentially focused on how do I kind of come across in a way that has my own style to it. And so my style, like when I'm around friends, right, I am insanely sarcastic. So I will always say I'm like a genius, I'm brilliant, I'm the best looking. I say things like that around my friends, right? So I figured, you know what, why don't I just do things like that? Almost dropped the camera. I said, why don't I actually do things like that when I film content? So I started doing that. But neither one of those are the things that actually like really did it for me in terms of building the audience. I always thought in terms of, forget building Instagram followers or building up all these followers, getting likes. I figured build a real business, not an audience. And to build a business, you have to sell something. So I focused on, well, what do I have to do to sell this thing, to sell this product? And so I created the product. And once I started selling it, at first I was focusing on me, like here's my expertise and here's the better advice and all that stuff. First I started doing that. When people bought the product, I now started focusing on them. So I now started saying, hey, look at what Dave did. Hey, look at what Betsy did. Hey, look at what so-and-so did. So now I started doing that. But what really changed it, what allowed me to build my audience, was the fact that I spent money. I spent money on advertising. A lot of people, they think they can just produce content, then they're gonna build this big business. That's not how it works. What has to happen is you have to be willing to spend money on advertising. You have to have a sales process in place to convert those leads into customers. So if you're not spending money on advertising, it's usually because you're afraid that you're gonna lose the money. And in the beginning, you probably will, especially if you don't have it set up right. So what you have to do is you either get help in terms of setting it up right, or you kind of just figure it out as you go. But if you spend money on advertising, that's how you're going to build your audience. Don't make it more complicated than it actually is. What you do is you spend money on advertising, you have a sales process to sell your program, to sell your coaching program, your online program, whatever it is, and then from there you're going to naturally build your audience. Don't focus on followers, on likes, or any of that stuff. Focus on generating profits. Focus on building a real business. That's essentially how I built my audience, was literally spending money on advertising. We got to a point where we could naturally spend $1,000 a day on ads just because we would get the money back. So that's where all my focus was on. And in terms of the person also asked me, like, how did I wow people with the information? I kind of mentioned it earlier in terms of what I would do is I would have the personality, like as I would film the videos, and say like ridiculous stuff as I film videos. I don't remember, even like when I would send emails, I'd say ridiculous stuff like, hey, do you know who Tony Robbins is? Okay, cool, he has nothing to do with this email. So I would say like ridiculous stuff like that. in order to wow an audience. But what I really focus on was like, all right, they have a problem. The people that I'm after, they have a problem. So all I have to do is just show them that I have the solution. And I did that with a combination of better information, just like hands down, my stuff is a million times better. I did that with that, and I spent a lot of money on advertising once. So in the beginning, I spent maybe about, I don't know, $20, probably not even $20 a day on ads. Once I got it right, once I realized like, oh wow, I'm actually making money, then I start spending more money on ads. And a lot of people, they're afraid to spend money on advertising because, like I said, they just don't think they're going to get it back. So what you have to do is you just have to make sure that your process is really good to a point where you know, like absolutely know, within 90 days or so that you're going to make your money back and then some. Once you get to that point, then you just start spending more and more. You get up to $100 a day, $300 a day, $500, $600, $1,000 a day, and then you'll be good to go. But don't make the process complicated. When you're building an audience, you simply find a niche, you figure out like what exactly am I going to talk about, and then you figure out what exactly do these people buy. You build a program around that. Now it comes down to, can you get the details right in order to figure out how to sell it? Once you get that right, you start spending a ton of money on advertising, and then you're good to go. You'll have a huge audience and you're good to go.